Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join me for Dearly Departed, where we're going to have a look at round 12 in the Premier League and we're going to make some predictions and probably fall flat on our faces. But there we go. It's all a bit of fun. What is the Dearly Departed? Who are the Dearly Departed? Well, this has in the main been a Championship YouTube channel. However, when teams get promoted, we don't want to lose them, so I keep covering them. So that includes our 5 dearly departed teams. That is Sheffield United and Aston Villa from 18-19 promotions, and Leeds, West Brom and Fulham from 19-20 promotions. We're going to have a look at their 5 games this coming round. First of all, I need to say thank you to our fan sponsor, who is Coyle. He says, dearly departed, also known as Ben, couldn't bear to lose us indeed. And a quick little plug from me. You can go and get involved over at the Teespring store. Just enter the discount code LIVE at the checkout and you can get 10% off any of the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel merchandise over there. Here are our round 12 fixtures. That's all 10 Premier League fixtures. We're obviously just going to look at the dearly departed games. So, going through the weekend, tonight at 8 p.m, Leeds versus West Ham. That's our game number 1, and we will be looking at that as a watch along. So come and join me tonight from about 7:45. Looking forward to that. Then it's another dearly departed game, 12:30 on Saturday, Wolves versus Villa. And then another, the 3 p.m. game. So the first 3 are dearly departed. Newcastle, West Brom. Then the big boys take over. Manchester United versus Manchester City in the evening time slot there. I'm sure the advertisers and the TV people had something to do with that. Everton, Chelsea at 8 on Saturday. Then on to Sunday and we get our 4th dearly departed game. Southampton versus Sheffield United at midday. Palace versus Tottenham then at 2:15, and then our final dearly departed game, number 5, Fulham versus champions Liverpool, on into the evening, and there's 2 more games, Arsenal versus Burnley, Leicester versus Brighton. Keep your eyes out, no Monday night football this week because it's a 3-game week next week, so all of the Premier League and indeed all of the Championship, I'm bracing myself for this, they're going to be playing weekend, midweek, weekend. It's going to be a busy time on the channel, let's just say. Right. Our first game to look at is going to be Wolves versus Aston Villa. We always work our way down the table. So Villa are our highest ranked dearly departed team at the moment. It is 12:30, I think it's on BT tomorrow. I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do Swansea and Cardiff or Wolves versus Villa as my watch along. Maybe you'd like to have some say in that in the comments. There is the recent form for the 2. You can see a couple of defeats in there for Wolves. Obviously lost 4-0 at Liverpool last time out. However, Liverpool are just a machine at the moment, and even with their injuries, they're doing it. They did beat Arsenal. They drew with Southampton. Lost against Leicester, but they did beat Palace. Don't really know what we can learn from that hodgepodge of results. There's open teams, there's tight teams. We know that Wolves do like to play it fairly pragmatic and sit in. Not to say that when they do launch attacks that they're not without technical skill there. It's hardly a counter-attack and get the ball up the pitch type situation, but they are happy to sit in. You could say the same for Villa in a couple of games this season. They've done that beautifully. However, that wasn't the case in the last watch-along we did. By the way, Villa's game postponed last time. I remember the COVID problems up at Newcastle. So they've had a bit of a rest. But as I was saying, we did the watch-along between West Ham and Villa on the channel. And Villa should have got something out of that. And West Ham were the team that sat in. And Villa had loads of the ball, loads of openings, missed a penalty, etc., etc. VAR call. Didn't get anything from the game. They're probably still smarting from that. What that does mean is 3 defeats in 4. And yes, we can blame James Ward-Prowse's set play prowess for the Southampton defeat. But the Brighton one, well, that was a bit of an aberration. We thought where Villa were in the hierarchy that they'd probably get something from that. So, this sort of West Midlands derby game, Villa are really going to want to get something from. There are the way the two teams, or the two clubs rather, lined up in the last game. Have a quick look at Wolves, Patricio, Semedo, Bolly, Cody, Marçal. That sometimes can be a 5, but it looks like they've gone to a 4 now. Neves, Moutinho, Dendoncker, Traore, Podence and Neto. Obviously, Raul Jimenez, probably the star turn there, maybe apart from Ruben Neves, with that horrible head injury. He's not around. Obviously, we wish him well, but Villa will be pleased that they're not facing him. For Villa, I suppose it's all just about Ross Barkley, who was injured, missed the West Ham game. They did still create a ton of chances, initially with Hurahan pushed a bit further forward, but then that sort of switched around and John McGinn did it and it looked a bit more 4-3-3 than 4-2-3-1, as you can see there. If Barkley's back, and I'm not sure he will be, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, that would be the big lift for Villa. However, like I say, they did create a ton of chances at West Ham without Ross Barkley. So that would be the positive look there. Martinez, and then it's very stable, isn't it? Cash Cons and Ming's target. Dean Smith will play that all season if he can and just leave it in there. And they have been good defensively, although it's been a bit leaky recently. Remember at the start of the season, it was clean sheet after clean sheet, wasn't it? Douglas Luiz, McGinn, Hurahan does seem to be filling in temporarily whilst Barkley is out, with Watkins up top, captain Jack Grealish, Trezeguet down the right. I still believe that is the one position that's not certain in Dean Smith's head there. There's Bertrand Traore, there's Anwar El Ghazi as well. Trezeguet, I think he won the penalty. He did miss a good chance in the West Ham game as well. If we look at the table, they're not too far apart, and Villa obviously now have 2 games in hand because their opening game this season against Man City was cancelled to give Man City more rest because they were playing in Europe, and we've got this COVID one against Newcastle now. So some idea that they could score points across those 2 games and be higher. However, you have to play the situation you're in. It's 4 defeats in 5 for Villa, which is not great at all. It is 2 wins, 7 points in 5 for Wolves, which is fine, but they will move downwards from where they are and would need more wins to sustain a top half run from where they are at the moment. Predictions-wise, well, I'm not sure Barkley will be back, but Villa, as I say, did create chances against West Ham. The issue I have with this game is, will Villa get caught out by Wolves, and will Wolves sit and set up, Villa try and play through them and then get caught by the Wolves attackers? I think with my dearly departed hat on, that Villa can get something from this one. So I'll go for an unhelpful draw, which might see both teams possibly drop places. But I think Villa now, they've been spotty, haven't they? Either winning or losing, would countenance that as something good. So I'll go for a draw. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on Wolves versus Aston Villa. Next up, as I said, is our watch-along. Tonight, 8 p.m, Leeds United versus West Ham. Why does that make me think of Frank Lampard Sr. running around a corner flag? That was at Elland Road. Was that against Leeds? Might not have been even against Leeds. I don't know why it makes me think of that. There you go. I'll stop waffling. That's tonight at 8 p.m. for the watch-along. Come and join me there. We'll start about 7:45. Leeds' recent results, well, they tidied up after losing 4-1 twice, frankly, to Brendan Rodgers and Roy Hodgson there. really good performance against Arsenal. Should have won that game, but nice, sustainable, and a good turnaround there. Then even better against Everton. Great away win there. Rafinha with the goal. Calvin Phillips on tip-top form there. However, the game against Chelsea, I think, signalled the first time Leeds came across a team that would try and go toe-to-toe and actually attack them and did it better than Leeds. That's the first time we've seen that this season. Because Leeds have gone toe-to-toe with Arsenal and Man City, but Chelsea just a bit too much for them in the end. They created loads of chances, Chelsea, and even though Leeds took the lead, I think even the most staunch Leeds fan was sort of for the first time this season going, okay, fine, it's the Premier League. That can happen. That might happen again a couple more times this season against one of the richer, higher ranked clubs, let's just say. The theory we've been peddling is that Leeds prefer to play against Arsenal, Everton and Chelsea, which then brings us to West Ham, who, unfortunately for Leeds, are going to play more in the way that a Wolves or a Palace or a Leicester did in terms of sitting back and trying to strike. And the last 5 have been good for West Ham, haven't they? They've lost to Liverpool and Manchester United in those games. However, 3 victories against 2 of our dearly departed. 1-0 against Fulham and Sheffield United. And then a 2-1 against Villa. So they've punished the dearly departed. Let's see if Leeds can buck the trend. Tight games, all 3 of those. Remember, Lookman missed a very, very late penalty in the game against Fulham. And frankly, Villa should have got something. So Leeds will look at that and think, West Ham have won narrowly against teams that haven't been performing well. Sadly, all dearly departed teams. Can we go one better if Villa had taken their chances? They would 100% have got a point or a win in that game. West Ham, Fabianski, a back 3 then, Cresswell, Ogbonna, Balbuena. Masuaku, I think, has gone for surgery because I need to take him out of my fantasy team. Kufal, Rice, Souček is a good double pivot, but I don't expect him to do too much attacking. That said, Souček did score against Manchester United. Fornals, Bowen and Haller up top. And I watched West Ham closely in the watch-along against Villa. And David Moyes is clever because he's very good at condensing the game, sort of taking goal kicks long, making the distance between back and front short, Arrigo Sacchi style, sitting in, making it hard, having clear pressing triggers to stop the other team. And it won't be a high press. It will be a high line with a sort of mid-low press, which is quite hard if you're not at it to play through, and then trying to strike. So, I mean, Bielsa and Leeds will fancy that. They'll say, okay, fine, you sit back, we'll play through you. That's the Bielsa way. But it will be interesting to see, because I think that's a little bit different than a Palace or a Leicester or Wolves, who did sit a little bit deeper, but then do try and stretch things for their counters. Whereas West Ham I found to be quite a bit more compact than that, which does stodge things up, particularly in midfield, which one would think would play into a team like Leeds' hands, who are very, very good in tight spaces, particularly down the sides of the pitch. We've seen a million times with those overloads with a fullback, a central midfielder, and then an overlapper or an inside underlapper, a 3-on-2 down the sides. It'd be hard against a centre-half, a wing-back, and probably a central midfielder covering with a wide forward tracking back in front. However, if anyone can in the tight spaces, it's Bielsa's Leeds. That's been the side for the last couple of games for Leeds. Don't get too obsessed with what SofaScore put up as their formation. We know Leeds rotate, and we know it's pretty much always a 4-1-4-1 in terms of the starting positions. And yes, I know players move around. I get it. Meslier in goal. Ailing. Now, Koch got injured in the last game at Chelsea, and Llorente came in. I actually thought Llorente grew into that game nicely and looks like another centre-half who knows how to pass the ball. Cooper and Alioski there. We wonder whether Rodrigo could predicate a change there in midfield. Whether you end up with Phillips sitting and then Dallas going back to left back, which would take Alioski out of the team, with then Rodrigo partnering Click in central midfield. Who knows? We will find out. Alioski's done fine in the games that he's been in, and the kind of double team with him down the side. He's just a little bit more explosive than Dallas. Dallas is a bit more considered, but then aren't the whole Leeds team. So maybe Alioski does strangely, I don't think he's as good as Dallas, but maybe he does give you something that Leeds don't otherwise have. We talked about Rafinha playing off the cuff. That kind of just up and at 'em sort of dynamic player like Alioski, who's a little bit unpredictable for that way. I don't know. We'll see what Bielsa comes up with. So really the only thing we're unsure of, will Koch be fit or will Llorente replace him? Will Rodrigo come back in which case Dallas would go left back, you'd think, and Alioski would go out of the team. Otherwise, you never know. He might feel Rafinha needs a rest, but Bielsa doesn't really do that, does he? He's happy to just keep players going, keep them in the team, in which case Helder Costa might come back in. I wouldn't have thought. There is the table. West Ham up just 3 points above Leeds there. As we said, West Ham 9 points in the last 5. Leeds only 4. But I do think Leeds, if they don't fall for the Moyes trap here, and let's be honest, they have come a cropper against teams that know how to defend this season. But I'm going to predict a victory for Leeds in the hope that they've learned from the defeats against Wolves and Leicester and Palace where teams sat in, and say what you want about any of the goals or any of the mitigating factors. There is, whether you like it or not, Leeds fans, a correlation between Leeds being far more comfortable against teams that will play in a more similar way to them, as opposed to teams that are going to sit in. And the results have borne that out, I have to say. They have been better against more front foot teams. West Ham will sit back and make it tricky, let's just say. But not, as I said, not in the same way that Leicester and Wolves or Palace did. And I think that might work in Leeds' favour. So look, with my dearly departed hat firmly stuck to my head, let's go for a Leeds United victory in this one and spread the positivity. Let me know what you think in the comments. Oh dear, next one up. Why does this happen all the time in the Premier League? It's Fulham versus Liverpool. Fulham played Manchester City last time out, didn't they? It does seem that teams a lot of the time play Manchester City and then Liverpool consecutively. I wonder why that is. Two best teams in the league, clearly over the last 2 seasons for sure. Probably even longer, really, when you add it up. But they both scored tons of points the last 2 seasons and won the championship. Anyway, I should be talking about Liverpool, who, as we said, have been freakishly good under Jurgen Klopp, haven't they? And without their goalkeeper, Alisson, without their star centre-half, Van Dijk, and I think other injuries, look at the teams in a second, are just still churning out decent output here, although they're not quite top of the league yet. And Manchester City, who beat Fulham last time out, are chasing them. Anyway, I'm getting very sidetracked on this. So you can see Liverpool's last results there is 11 points from the 5 games, 2 points per game, which for any mere mortal team, absolutely fine. You're going to be up towards the top of the league, whereas Liverpool have just set such ludicrously high standards where they actually normally perform above that, don't they? But hey, we're coming to the end possibly of a 3-year cycle with that team, and Klopp will be tweaking, and no team outputs the way that they have for forever. European Cup and 99 points and 100 points or whatever. Did they get 100 points? I think that high 90s twice running and all those trophies that they've won. The results, they've beaten West Ham 2-1, drawn with Manchester City, beaten Leicester 3-0, drawn with Brighton, and then beaten Wolves 4-0. So one thing you can see is imperiously good at home, but in Fulham's favour there, the last 2 games have been drawn 1-1. Okay, one of them was against Manchester City, but the other was against Brighton, wasn't it? So is that some hope for Fulham? Fulham have 2 wins in the last 5, which I've said exhaustively is fine. Just score more than a point per game. And this is a low-tide season. You probably might just need 1 point per game and you'll be all right this season with 38. It does seem like a low total at the moment, unless someone goes on a run, could keep you up in the Premier League. They got that win against West Brom, which we did against a watch-along. Also, great away win at Leicester. The other games they've lost, well, Manchester City away, Everton at home, and then bit of a mitigating factor in the West Ham game. Surely they should have drawn that. Late, sort of 100th minute penalty in the stoppage time. Lookman tries to dink, and they should, I think, have got a point. There is your Liverpool team. So the hope is the injuries for Fulham. Kelleher in goal. Clean sheet in the last game, though. Williams started at right back, so Trent getting a rest there. Does he come back? Who knows? Matip and Fabinho is not at all the first choice centre-half partnership. But, again, it got a clean sheet. Robertson is obviously excellent at left back. Wijnaldum, Henderson, Jones, the youngster, started in central midfield. But again, you can see on the bench there, Naby Keita. So some idea that Klopp is trying to rotate. However, look at the front three. Mane, Firmino, Salah. Doesn't matter who else is playing. You got a chance against anyone with that front three, haven't you? There's the Fulham team, and they're doing something fairly clever, which we've spoken about a couple of times, where Bobby Reid is both an attacker and a defender as such. So the SofaScore algorithm has got him coming up as a wing-back. I suppose that's reasonable to argue, but I think the idea is it's a back four with Reid helping back defensively. Now, against Liverpool, you can kind of argue where is Reid more often in the game, and against Liverpool, it's Bobby Reid we're talking about, by the way. Against Liverpool, he is going to be back. So let's just go with that formation and say that you're going to have Iain tucked in as a sort of right centre-back with Anderson, Adarabioyo in front of Areola in goal. Robinson, deep full-back. And maybe Reid is back covering Sadio Mane a lot. So call it a back five, but Reid will try and get forward. Then the other Reid, Harrison with Anguissa in midfield. Lemina's had a few games. And then the thing that's interested me is he's not using Mitrovic or Kearney. It's been Loftus-Cheek, Lookman and Cavaliero. It's a settled team for Fulham. It's a settled system, but it's Liverpool, isn't it? Look at the tables. We can't look at the tables. I don't have them. Fulham just outside the relegation zone. Obviously, Liverpool just touching the top of the league, but not quite managing to get past Jose's Spurs yet. So, look, I've got to predict the Liverpool win. I hope the Liverpool away drawing continues and our dearly departed Fulham can get something. But if Mane, Salah and Firmino are starting, you would expect a Liverpool victory. Boring as it is and simplistic in its analysis as it is, they're just very, very good, aren't they? On we go to Newcastle and West Brom. West Brom had a horrible time last game week. They lost 5-1 at home to Palace. However, there was the mitigating factor of a Matt Pereira violent conduct red card there. We debated that at the time. Let's not go back into it. I assume it hasn't been appealed or he hasn't gotten away with it, so he's not going to be around now for 3 games, which is not great. Let me know if there's any other news on that. Hard to keep up with everything, which means 4 defeats in the last 5 for West Brom, and frankly, their only win against the hapless Sheffield United, who just can't get any points for love nor money this season, only in 1 of the 11 games so far. Not that that pleases me, by the way. I'm going to talk about them in a minute, aren't I? Sheffield United, they're another one of our dearly departed. Newcastle, well, postponed against Villa last time out. So, I don't know. It's a rest, isn't it? Whereas so many teams are just hammering through this season, playing twice a week, especially Champions League, the European teams, just 2 games a week for months on end, honestly, dearie me. Newcastle, really good result at Palace last time they did play. They've lost games against Chelsea and Southampton recently, but did beat Everton. So what that tells us is they're a side that's capable of dispatching, and where do I frame Everton? Everton's still in the top 6. They're capable of dispatching reasonable teams, but are probably going to lose to the top teams. However, that would imply that they might do all right against a team like West Brom, who is down lower in the table. West Brom, well, the 5-1 there against Palace last time out. Let's write it off with the red card and apologise for our dearly departed team here. They did beat Sheffield United against Manchester United. Look, they lost that, but that was full of caveats, that game. Excuse me, let me just take a drink. Against Tottenham, well, Mourinho did them. And the game against Fulham is a really disappointing one where that was a direct rival and Fulham got the win there. They're going to have to function without Matt Pereira, which is never a good thing. Interesting that the 3 players I've been hoping that he was going to manage to figure into his system, Diangana, Pereira and Grant. Diangana and Pereira so good last season in the promotion. He did get started in the last game. I've said this for a while as well. If you can't seam the team together through the thirds, just stick the creative players on and have the other players just defending for them. You know, that may work. You can overcomplicate it sometimes, especially when you're down the bottom of the league. Defend well, give your attacking players the chance to do something. There's other managers in this league, when we talk about Steve Bruce, that do that. So Johnston in goal. It was Bartley, Ivanovic, Ajayi, Furlong, Phillips there starting down the left-hand side. That's different. Gallagher and Sawyers have been the double pivot for a while. So I guess Callum Robinson would come in for Matheus Pereira, and we'll see how he configures the 3 off the front. It'll either be Grant up top down the middle with 2 narrow forwards flanking him, or Grant, like they say there, and Diangana with one, maybe Grant and Robinson with Diangana behind, or Diangana and Robinson behind Grant, as I mentioned. Let's see. Seems to be the formula now. Seems to be happy with the 3 at the back. Seems to be happy with the double pivot in midfield. Can he get some goals now is the issue. And not having Pereira doesn't help in that regard. Newcastle there, well, I mentioned Steve Bruce, and a manager who will simultaneously keep it very tight, not take many risks, but will try and get his attacking players on the ball early in good positions. Darlow is the keeper. Manquillo, Fernandez, Clark, Lewis, Hendrick, Longstaff, Shelvey, Almiron with Joe Linton and Wilson, who's been playing excellently. Of course, I took him out of my fantasy team for that last game and he got a goal and an assist, didn't he? Only me. Hey, not that you care about that. There's the league table. West Brom down in 19th, only 6 points from 11. That's a horrible total so far for the Baggies. Newcastle, well, 7 points in the last 5. That's absolutely fine. And it does appear that they are currently functioning in that little realm above the bottom 5, who are a little bit adrift. Brighton aren't making a point per game, but they're 4 points clear because of that horrible low totals by the bottom 4 so far. So, prediction in this one, Newcastle versus West Brom. You would love, with your dearly departed hat on, for West Brom to be able to go there. Can they score a goal away at Newcastle? This is the issue, and will Bruce block them out? I hate to say it, without Pereira, if he's not there, I think they struggle, and a draw is the best they can hope for. Bilic probably knows he can get a point out of this if he goes defensive, because Bruce is a old pragmatist, isn't he? So, shall we say, let's say a draw in this one, but I'm a bit worried for West Brom if indeed they are functioning with Matheus Pereira suspended. We'll go for a draw anyway, optimistically as ever. Finally, speaking of optimism, we need all the optimism in the world when we're talking about Sheffield United, don't we? Because they are well bottom at the moment, aren't they? 5 straight defeats. You can see there it's Southampton versus Sheffield United. And annoyingly for Sheffield United, Southampton are playing rather well, aren't they? At the moment, you can see 10 points in the last 5 is your 2 points per game. Gold standard there. They've won at Villa. They've beaten Newcastle. They've drawn at Wolves. Lost at home to Manchester United. And then won at Brighton with an odd VAR penalty at the end of that game, scored by Danny Ings. And for Sheffield United, it's just been heinous, isn't it? And we just find mitigating factors in a lot of the games. And again, last time out, Chris Wilder, I'm sure we've all seen the picture of him, just his head in his hands at the end when Jamie gave the ball away. Can't do that against Leicester with Vardy at the end of the game. They're set up to counter-attack. Vardy goes through, obviously scores. And they lose in the last minute. So they were close to getting the point in that game, weren't they? But they've been close to getting points in a lot of games this season and not done it. Only got points in the one game, wasn't it? The draw against Fulham. There is your Southampton team, McCarthy in goal. It's nice and settled. Walker-Peters, Bednarek. You can see Vestergaard scored in the last game. He's very dangerous from set plays, of course, with Ward-Prowse taking them. Bertrand down the left, Armstrong, Ward-Prowse, Romeo, Gineppo, Adams and Walcott up top. However, Danny Ings came on in the second half of that one and did indeed get the winning goal, and he's been excellent for most of this calendar year, hasn't he, Ings? So it's a very settled, very solid Southampton team. Exactly how we used to describe Sheffield United, who are sticking with the... And I think Wilder alluded to this in an interview I saw with him, that he's not unhappy with the system or the pattern of play. He's unhappy with the execution. So I think he's going to stick with what he's doing and hope his players can execute on the pitch. Ramsdale in goal. Well, some people I've seen in my Twitter feed and on the comments do question him for a few of the goals, but it's been hard for him coming in, replacing Henderson without then having Jack O'Connell in front of him. And speaking of Jack O'Connell, still not there. Basham, Egan, Brian has played the last couple of games. Baldock and Lowe down the sides at wing-back. I think Ender Stevens might be back, which is good news. Berger, Fleck and Lundstrom there. Berger seems to be the certain starter. McBurney scored in the last game. Excuse me. Up top. Sorry, let me take another drink. Up top with Oliver Burke, who seems more of a runner. Sorry, it's morning time and I've been speaking for 30 minutes straight now about this. My voice is going a little bit AWOL. So, do you know what? I don't know where, other than Ender Stevens coming in, whether he'll change anything. You could get Ollie Norwood come back into midfield, but Lundstrom gives a little bit more physicality, whereas Norwood gives you that extra playmaking skill, which is helpful in a game with time and space. I'm not sure you're going to get that against Southampton. So perhaps it will just be Stevens that comes back in. There is the table, which has Southampton in 5th. And just Sheffield United, it's just awful. I say it couldn't be worse. The only way it could be worse is 0 points from 11 games. It's just the 1 point. And I've said this the last few weeks. The only thing that's positive for Sheffield United is that there are 3 other teams not scoring many points at all as well. Nowhere near a point per game, Fulham, Burnley or West Brom, which projects out to 38, which intimates at this stage, if no one goes on a run and the tide doesn't rise, that someone could survive with a very low total. It could be 4 adrift. Maybe Brighton gets suckered in. I don't know. They're not at that level yet. Can Sheffield United get anything from this? I'm forever optimistic, but Southampton are good. So I think, again, with my... I try and leave my bias at the door, and then I leave that at the door, and then I pop on my dearly departed hat and am more optimistic. They were close against Leicester. Leicester are a good side. Other than a last-minute goal, they would have got a point. So let's go for a point again for Sheffield United and keep our fingers crossed that we don't get another defeat for the Blades. And that's our show. That is our dearly departed preview. As ever, get your comments in on the predictions I've given. As I always say, the best comment you can give is your own ideas rather than a critique of mine. You're more than welcome to critique mine, but I'm just going to ask you back what your ideas are. So give your own ideas on any of those games and your feedback on what I've said. And your predictions would be nice to see. Obviously, we skew heavily towards Sheffield United, Villa, Leeds, West Brom and Fulham fans here. If you are supporting one of the other teams, you come in via the hashtag. You're very, very welcome. And please understand what we're trying to do here. I've had a few confused fans. There was one particular Leicester fan who just couldn't understand that I wasn't waxing lyrical and talking for half an hour about his team. The whole premise is we're talking about the 5 teams that I've covered in the Championship. So don't get upset if I didn't talk that much about your team. It's kind of not the point of the show. Right, with all of that being said, once again, thank you to Jay. Dearly departed, also known as Ben, couldn't bear to lose us. He's our fan sponsor for the Dearly Departed show. And once again, there is your Teesprings discount code. Just type in live at the checkout and you can buy yourself a t-shirt, a mug, a phone case, a hoodie, a sweatshirt with a 10% discount there. Dearly Departed will be live represented in the watch-along tonight. Leeds versus West Ham, possibly tomorrow. I might have to do Swansea, Cardiff, possibly on Sunday as well. Fulham, Liverpool, that interests me a little bit. We'll see what goes down with that one. But we will, for certain, be back at 1 p.m. on Monday and we will review all of this. We'll try and do it live as well. That might be fun. And as always, if anything extraordinary happens, I'll go early with a review of either the Leeds or the Villa game ahead of time. So do check that out. With all of that being said, thank you very much for watching. And it is over and out from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.